Hello and welcome to Empire Builders, the place for entrepreneurs, business owners and experts who want to build an epic empire. I'm Nick James and thanks for joining me here today. In this episode, I am joined by international best-selling author and speaker, also, fun fact, my co-host of the Heads and Volleys podcast and avid Sunderland fan, Mr. Paul Mort. What are we saying?
Mate, I'm excited. I feel like we talk to each other every week, but we just talk about football, never talk about business.
Well, yeah. So today we're actually going to talk about business, by the way, but I have to say something about football. I've just managed to lock in 4 tickets, Paris Saint-Germain away in the quarterfinal of the Champions League. Absolutely buzzing.
I have actually heard it's amazing there. Someone said to me the other day, Paul, it's unbelievable there. The atmosphere is apparently incredible.
Well, it's going to be amazing if we win. If we get dicked 5-0, which is possible, considering
it is possible,
then it won't be very good. Anyway, right, let's get into this, the business talk, into the podcast, to Empire Builders. I've got so much I want to talk to you about. So much. The first thing, because you've done what not a lot of people have done, in my view, which is you've built a 7-figure business as a coach. Like you coach people. You basically go against every bit of advice that I give, which is don't be a coach, super niche and specialize. And you've built a 7-figure business because you don't listen to anyone's advice. You just have your own path. But like, how do you manage it? Like, how do you manage client load with, I mean, how many clients you got?
350.
How do you manage 350 clients when you're the coach?
So I only do the coaching part. I only show up for Zoom calls, deliver masterclasses. We've developed this thing now, and this took me a long time for me to get my head around, because we can sometimes get into this scarcity mindset where we're like, well, he does what I do, and that's competition. And I had to kind of get over that. So now I bring in guests who do trainings quite regularly, like guest speakers. So we bring them in every month. What I've got now is, because the client base is so deep, it's actually clients who come in and do the training. So we get double bubble. There are people that are better at loads of things than me. They come in and do a training, but at the same time, big me up. So it's like a live testimonial. It's amazing. Yeah. I only take part in the Zoom bits. I have a customer success manager, and all Kath does is essentially tell me who's not playing the game. She's on the phone right now. We're building out a bit of technology with AI that teaches us client engagement. Who's on Zooms, who's showing up at events, who's logging into portals, who's replying to emails, who's ignoring. So we're building out this like traffic light system. So essentially technology and team. I mean, you told me that, mate. The reason I joined Mastermind in the first place is because I'd made £1 million before, but at the expense of literally everything else. Because I realized, I thought I knew everything about business. I was 20. When I joined Mastermind, I was probably 19 years into business, but I didn't understand team. So I'd keep building things and then burning them and building them and then burning them. What you taught me the most was about team and managing team and hiring team and managing expectations. So essentially it's team and technology that have allowed me to build that. So customer success manager who manages all the shit, VA that manages logins and all that stuff. And I show up and I just coach. That's it. I do the thing that I love doing and that I'm best at. And because I think we'll forget this, the reason I started the business.
Yeah. By the way, as a separate conversation, I want to speak to you offline about the AI for
engagement.
Because we've been doing tracking of client engagement, interaction, traffic light system for ages, but it's a manual task. So I'm really interested in talking to you about that. That's a separate conversation. But the reason I started with this question is a lot of our audience, I mean, we have people that run all sorts of different types of businesses and they're entrepreneurs with multiple different companies and things like that. But a large part of our audience, as you know, are experts, coaches, consultants, speakers, trainers, authors. You're kind of all of the above. And a lot of them either, and we're going to speak about this as well, they either just struggle to get clients or they get to a critical mass of clients when they can't grow because there's not enough time for them to serve more. So let's go back a step. Maybe I should have started here. Let's talk about getting clients in the first place. Like you've got 350 current clients.
Paying
I mean, that's insane. And there's probably people listening to this that are coaches, therapists, mentors, they're selling their time, their expertise one-to-one. And they can't get 3, let alone 300. So let's talk about how have you done that?
So I've got a lot of history in the game. So I had a bit when I started doing what I'm doing now, which is coaching married businessmen who need to get their shit together. Essentially, that's who I talk to. I have 80 female clients. And I don't even market the program at all.
Yeah.
Don't even talk to ladies, and I get bullied into coaching them. Right. So I have this thing as well, again, group. So I have actually had a head start because when I first started this thing, I had background as a fitness business coach. So you'll know that a big bit of leverage that I've got. I've coached James Smith and people like that who shout me out all of the time. So that gives me a bit of a head start. But then after that, mate, it's just about.
Well, hold on a sec. Sorry to interrupt, but let's go back a step there because you go, oh, I've done that, so it gives me a head start. But hold on, that's worth noting because like the question really should be, how do I get that head start? Like, how do I get somebody with profile to consume my services, whether you're a coach or a therapist? Because that might be the one thing that unlocks everything.
Yeah, I mean, there was a bit of a secret weapon. He didn't have a profile when I coached him. I helped them build his profile.
Yeah. Well, so maybe the lesson is coach people with massive potential, coach people that you can see being the next.
And you got to coach people with the same thing, right? And everyone in that game wants to be Smith, whether they hate him or like him, right? They want to do what he's doing, right? He's making serious money. But what they don't want to do is the work that he's put in. Same as me. The first thing I was going to mention is the reason I'm so far ahead is I'm fucking relentless with my work rate, me effort, me putting out content, me adding value to the marketplace. I've wrote over 3,000 emails daily. I send 5 emails a week, every single week since 2012. Smith wrote a daily email every day for 6 months before he made a sale. There are people giving up after 6.
Yeah. Well, mate,
if you look at how many videos he's put out, it took him. And again, Chris Williamson's a friend of mine as well. Chris comes in and do guest trainers and all that. And people think he's this overnight success. He was doing 3 podcasts a week for 7 years.
Yeah.
3 a week for 7 years. We mess around and do 1 every fucking 6 weeks and wonder why we're not Chris Williamson.
Yeah.
So I doubled down on content, personality content, and that's still what I do now. I had a conversation with one of my clients the other week. Paul, I'm doing everything and I'm not making sales. I said, well, tell me what everything is. I was like, bro, you're not even close. Yeah. I do that on my own without a team. The team do more, they add more, but I'm already doing that. Yeah. And I'm doing way more money than you, and I'm still outworking you.
Yeah. So and I think part of it as well is like, yes, put out loads of content, but also if you're doing bits of everything, if you're doing an email once every 2 weeks and a podcast once every 3 weeks and
forgettable
in posts once every 2-3 days, and
forgettable,
it's just going to be diluted. Like you've got to go hard on a few things, especially things that you're really good at. Right?
Double down on a few things instead of dabbling in everything. Yeah. You can't dabble and expect the results of somebody that's doubled down. That's, I think, a big problem for a lot of people. But I'm doing a keynote about this next Friday, actually, for my client at Alton Towers, randomly.
Nice.
We're going to event Alton Towers, so we've got 100 clients coming to the theme park. Wild. Next day. But I'm doing a bit of content on this concept of being reliable, right? This perception of being reliable in every area of your life. And I'm like, if we're looking for people to pay us, they've got to trust us. And reliability is the currency of trust. Yeah. And reliability is a perception. So reliability for your current clients is a no-brainer, right? It's got to happen. Reliability for your partner, got to happen. Reliability, all of that stuff's got to happen. But actually, if you're posting on social media when you've got something to say, you actually demonstrate to me that you're unreliable. When you've got something to say, when you can be bothered, when you've got time, it demonstrates, in my opinion, people have the perception that you're forgettable and that you're unreliable. Like, legit. That gives the perception that you're unreliable, which means people aren't going to give you money. Excuses, which I hear a lot from people trying to build a business, obviously, and you will hear it as well. This is my favorite saying, excuses are the language of the unreliable. In business, you want the perception that you are reliable, that when I pay you to do something, you're going to deliver. And the perception is sometimes just consistency with your marketing. Relentless consistency, though. It's got to be relentless forever. Every day that I don't post, there's a missed opportunity to make a sale. Every day that I don't send an email, by default, I can't get paid because people buy when they're ready, not when I can be bothered to say something. Not when I've got time to make a reel. Not when I've got time to send an email. that's legit. It's a bit of a boring secret, but all of that work in the background, that day after day after day after day, with the same message. That's another thing. I'm saying the same message all of the time. Get your shit together. Get your shit together. Get your shit together. Get your shit together. That's constant forever, and it's a forever job. So that is the most boring secret ever. But anyone that's successful at anything, that's what they've done. I know a lot of comedians somehow, right? I know a lot of comedians, and they say shit like, everyone sees the arena tour, but what they don't see is the 6 years where they turned up, performed in front of 3 people, and it cost them money because they had to pay for petrol and didn't get paid for the gig. No one sees that. That's what I've done for so long.
I talk about the same thing in the events business. You know, I rock up and do an event for 500 people twice a year. And everyone goes like, hey, that's amazing. I wish I could do that. I'm like, yeah, but you're not seeing that I'm on stage, either online or in person, like 100, 150 days a year, grinding it out at our office without getting all of the big accolades. And, you know,
people don't see that. And another thing that I wanted to say, because we mentioned like the past and that I had a head start. A head start basically just means I started sooner. Like, that's what I say to a lot of people. So can you remember, I did a mad podcast this morning in Darlington. Can you remember Anthony Hutton, that one big brother, the Geordie?
Yeah.
I was on his podcast this morning, and he's trying to do what I'm doing now, trying to help blokes. And he said, Paul, how are you so far? I said, mate, the reality is I just started before you. That's the only reason I started sooner and I didn't stop. Yeah. It's like a black belt in jiu-jitsu will literally just go, the only difference between me and you is that I started sooner and I didn't stop. People start and then stop and then start and then stop, or don't start at all. So, and this, again, boring secret. It's not a secret, but you can't skirt around it. There's no real secret to that.
Yeah. By the way, you mentioned, you know, quite a few comedians. You've done some stand-up. Let's talk about
I have. So the stand-up.
Why did you get into doing stand-up in the first place? What was the reason?
Well, I thought I was funny.
Well, and by the way,
I was funny.
Yeah, and look, you are
kind of funny.
This is a thinly veiled compliment. You're a lot funnier than the average person. I'll give you that.
Oh, thank you, sir. But what I realized is that, you know, I've done a lot of speaking all over the world, and I get laughs. So that automatically makes me think I'm funny. But then I realized very quickly, people will laugh at anything when you're doing a keynote, especially if the other speakers are boring, right? So they'll laugh because a lot of guys, they're so professional, they don't make jokes. So anyway, I thought, you know what? I think I'm funny. I've got friends that are comedians that love it, and they're all mental. Like, they're all off it. I thought business people were a bit tapped. But, mate, comedians are on another planet, man. Like, they're draining. They're more draining than spending time with me, right? It's a different kind of thing. So I did that, and I also thought, you know what? This will complement me speaking. I take it serious. And I quickly found out it's very different. The only bits that's the same, Nick, I remember the first one that I did, it was everybody who did a course. And I've done loads of comedy since, like with comedians. And everyone was like, Paul, why aren't you nervous? I'm like, well, I've experienced this before bit loads of times. Yeah. That was fine. But as soon as I got on the stage, I was like, oh shit, this is so different, man. Because when you do a keynote, there's 2 things. You know you're going to get a round of applause at the end. Comedy, you can get butchered. Yeah. Butchered. Those charity ones where I did the course, they were fine. But when I stepped up and started doing social clubs and pubs, in Middlesbrough and Newcastle, this was a different level for me. So
I suppose the difference is, like, when you're doing a keynote, like, they want you to be good.
Yes.
And like, they're not expecting you to be funny. So if you are, it's a bonus.
Yes.
Like, in the charity comedy gig,
same kind of deal.
They're on your side. They want you to win. When you're in a social club, they want you to be funny, but if you're not, they're going to make sure they get entertained a different way.
Absolutely, mate. The feedback is instant.
Yeah,
and think about this. If you're doing a keynote and people are quiet, that's great news. Yeah. Comedy, it's a disaster.
Yeah.
So people would laugh at things that, and again, it's so addictive. It's more addictive than speaking. The buzz is different level. Where they laugh at things that aren't jokes. They don't laugh at things that I think are hilarious. But the ultimate compliment for me is if someone laughs before I finish the joke, because they figured out what's coming. That's my ultimate thing. So yeah, man, the challenge that I've had, Nick, is I am on this thing that I'm calling impossible goals this year. And I'm all about saying no now. Because you know what it's like, when you first start a business, you say yes to everything.
Yeah, and you should.
You should. You have to. People are asking me about speaking all the time. I'm like, mate, I've done hundreds of free ones. I haven't always commanded these kind of fees, but actually that's in the concept of saying no as well. Like I won't do it unless it's this. So the comedy is the problem again, is what I was saying before, is it's traveling. It's always on a night time. I'm not great with late nights. I hate late nights. So it's always travel, and it tends to be on a weekend as well. Yeah. So it's a bit of a thing. And also it started leaking a little bit into my keynotes, but not in a good way.
Right.
Because in comedy, you can say anything you want.
Yeah.
People say you can't make jokes anymore. I am telling you, I have said a joke that I was like, ooh, this is risky. And people were fine. Even Russell Kane, my friend Russell Kane, top comedian, he's actually on Comic Relief this weekend doing Strictly on Comic Relief. He's an amazing dancer, by the way. Right. Anyway, Russell said to me, I sent him a clip. He was like, Paul, boring. I was like, what? I told like pedophile jokes in that. I was like, mate, you are so corporate. He said, stop playing safe. And I was like, wow, I thought I was risque, on the ball. And he was like, mate, you're nowhere near. You're way funnier than that. That's how mad comedy is. But yeah, it has improved my timing, how slow I go. Anyone not paying attention when I'm talking gets it both barrels now because of the heckling. The heckling's a lot of fun. That's where I found out actually whether I was funny or not. That's where you see the difference between a good comedian and a good storyteller, how they deal with a heckler. I have got so much respect for people that do crowd work because that was where I was like, oh, I actually am funny.
Yeah.
Like,
you've got to be super sharp, haven't you, to do
got to
that?
be super sharp, yeah.
I'm not saying anyone can do it, but if it's well written, if the material's good, anyone can deliver the material.
Yes.
I'm not saying anyone can. It needs to be worked on. But it's when the unexpected happens, can you deal with that? Can you be funny off the cuff when you don't know what's coming next?
Yeah, and that part helps speaking so much because sometimes you don't know what's coming next. I mean, me, I did a gig in a jail in Wolverhampton, actually, not far from you. Actually, I came into the office that day.
Yeah.
To the jail, and the clicker didn't work, the overhead projector didn't work, and the microphone didn't work. What do you do? I just so happened to know the keynote off by heart, so it was fine. Yeah. But it was like, that's the kind of thing that you have to prepare for with public speaking. And I believe, and you'll know this, mate, there are not many things that propel your reputation and the perception that you're an expert faster than getting on the stage. Only one thing, and that's being an author, in my opinion. Those two things together, they are rocket fuel for positioning. Rocket fuel, dynamite.
Yeah, 100% agree. Anyway, that whole comedy thing was a complete tangent, but I wanted to speak about it because I know you've been doing it, and you said that it started leaking into your presentations, your keynotes, and not in a good way. What do you mean by
that? Yeah. So I'll have like a radar, I'll have a scale of how rude what I say is. Yeah. And I very rarely go past a 7 or an 8 when I'm on the stage. But last week I did a gig at St. James's Park and I said something and instantly I was like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Yeah. I didn't even say it loud because I knew it was bad. It was in my brain. I was like, that's fucking hilarious. Yeah. And then I said it and I was like, oh shit. Luckily the crowd were fine and knew me because it was in the fitness industry. So I've got a lot of credit in the bank in that industry because I was in it for so long.
Yeah, I suppose the thing is, if you've got Russell Kane going, you're too safe, you've got to push it further, and then you do, your reality of what's acceptable gets completely stuck. I wouldn't go further than a 7. You still think you're at a 7, but actually you're at a 12.
And my 7 is most people's 10.
Yeah, yeah. That's definitely true, having got to know you and having seen you speak. I still believe you hold the record for most, in a 60-minute keynote on stage at one of our events, the most swear words.
Yes.
You and Rob Moore are very close.
And I would have been fairly. Leslie was there as well. If Leslie's not there, that's my wife, by the way, you guys. Yeah. If Leslie's there, I'm a bit more tame because she's at the back going like this. She's warned me before I go on. She's fine with it, but then she hasn't actually seen me do comedy at all. She's like, I'm not coming. You'll get cancelled. Comedy will be the thing that gets me cancelled, and I'm trying my hardest, but it's not working. You can legit. People say you can't joke, Nick. That is absolute. You can't joke. There's some jokes that just can't get on the internet. That's all.
You know what? I do think as well, like anything, it's context. Like in the context of a stand-up comedy night, people go in, make me laugh, say things that you're not allowed to say on social media, and all of that stuff. Like hit me.
I actually think, Nick, it's changing now. I think it's actually going 360.
Yeah, maybe. But in a business keynote, like you haven't got permission to do that. On social media, you definitely haven't got permission to do that. So,
and again, it depends on the stage though, Nick. Like I will say, I got booked for a gig this week. Sunderland Startup Week. So it's a local gig, which I never get, by the way. You never get booked for a local. Get flown to Puerto Rico, Hollywood, Dubai, but I can't get gigs in my own town. It's weird. So I've got this gig in Sunderland. I said, listen, I signed the contract yesterday. I said, listen, just so we're super clear, I am not going to hold back at this thing because I would hate to be censored now. I'm in a position where I can do that now.
Yeah.
But there is a period. So it depends on the room as well.
Yeah.
So I turn down school gigs all the time and I'd love to do it, but I'm like, I don't think I'd be able to keep it in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And ironically, they'd love you.
Kids
But
would,
yeah, that's what I mean. The kids would because they're almost like shielded, protected, like spoken down to, and it's like.
Yep.
But and by the way, like well, we've got you. Max is.
Yeah, my son loves it. He loves it. He knows all these kids.
Yeah, your son Max is 14. My lad Zach's 15. Like that. Look, let's be honest. I wish. I hope that he hasn't. You know that he doesn't talk shit and stuff. But I know he does, especially when I'm not there. So like, it's all good, and they'd love it. But they
do. My son loves stand-up comedy. We're going to one tomorrow night. Actually, we're going to see my friend perform, and he loves it. He laughs at things that I'm like, how do you even know what that is? I'm like, can't he hear it? So he may as well be with me when he hears it. Do you know what I mean? It's great training. He gets to meet cool people. He might want to do that one day. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I'd have no problem with wanting him to go with him. I was with 2 comedians last night, man. I was exhausted by the time I left.
Yeah, man.
I went to an opening. I was with this guy called Kalani the Ghost Hunter, who's got 3 million followers on TikTok. I didn't even know who he was. Mm-hmm. And then I was with the Food Review Club guy, 2 million followers or something. And I was with me 2 mates that are comedians, Chris Ramsey in college. And honestly,
what's the Food Review guy called?
I can't remember. But he was a real nice guy. But he's crushing it, man. These food reviewers are crushing it. But I was exhausted from hanging out with 2 stand-up comedians.
Yeah, because there's one that my wife Nat and
Matt. He's called Matt.
Yeah, there's one that they follow and they love him. Let's get back on track and talk business.
Yeah, sorry.
So no, I'm enjoying it. It's all good. So let's talk about then. You've talked a little bit about how you manage the client load, team and tech. I remember years ago there was something that I learned from you, and it was I remember it really changed my thinking. Which is like you do a lot of your coaching sessions as like power sessions with clients.
Yes.
Talk about that because I think that was really. I remember you told me about it, and I went, "That's genius." So
so the way we operate now is probably different since then. So I have 20 one-to-one clients, right? But I must do 2 one-to-one calls a week, right? Maximum, and they're 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I never do that. I think the mistake that a lot of coaches and experts make is they'll have an hour every week.
Yeah.
And and your mum probably taught me this, by the way. Your mum, Nikki V, world class, probably taught me this. It was like, if there's not a problem, why are we having a call? Because you're looking for a problem. So what you get is clients just coming on and you're looking for problems that don't exist. Mm. So we have what's called a turbo coaching call. It's 15 minutes. I'll not even ask them how they are because I learned that from your mum. I'll go, what's most critical for you to resolve right now? And they know not to book the call if it's not a problem. Yeah. When they first start, like, oh, can I have a call at the same time next week? I'm like, if you've got a problem, you can. So I don't have calendar links for them to book a call. I'm like, ask me. I'll tell you if I've got time or not. So, but my coaching sessions through the week, all group coaching. What I've started doing now, Nick, is again, this is new because what I've realized that people don't come on Zooms, they tend to not stay. And you know what, churn rate's huge for us. Churn rate's massive for any coaching business, really. And what I've realized is that if there's like a Q&A, if people haven't got a question, they won't come on. Why would they? They haven't got a question. So what I've started doing now, Nick, which has changed the game for me, I do a little 15 to 20 minute training, a masterclass before the Q&A.
Yeah.
There's a reason for them to come on, even if they don't have a question.
Yeah.
So for example, Friday, I think I'm talking about how I'm using these case studies to generate hundreds and hundreds of leads organically. Case study with a client. Kind of like what we're doing here, actually.
Yeah.
Case study, how's your business changed? It's like a testimonial, but an hour long. So I'm doing a training. I'm just showing them what I've done. 20 minutes. Here's how you can apply it to the building industry. Here's how you can apply it to plumbing. Like all these mad industries I'm working with somehow. And that 20 minutes takes me 2 minutes to put together, but it makes people show up even if they don't have a question.
And because, by the way, I do something similar like at Expert Empires, you know, we've got people there. I do keynotes and stuff.
Yes.
But I know, again, I'm aware that one of my big strengths is like being off the cuff and doing Q&A.
Yes.
It's what I enjoy most and where I show up best.
Yeah, because we're getting to show off all that we know, right? That's what I love it.
But the problem is, if I just go, right, Q&A, what have you got? it's harder. Whereas if I do a little bit of content first, I then move into Q&A, the questions flow better as well.
Yes.
So not only is it a reason for them to show up on the call, it's also going to stimulate more questions.
Yes.
So it makes for a better experience.
Every time. And that means, it also means I've got hundreds of little mini trainings on different little topics. And sometimes I'll just do something that I've done a longer session on for like 6 months earlier. And I'd be like, lads, I'm going to recap this for you. I'm just going to give it a different title. And then it works magically well for us. Like I'm on Zoom for an hour every third Monday, an hour every third Friday, and 3 hours every Wednesday with that many clients. No one-to-one calls.
Yeah. Great, mate. Love the model. Absolutely amazing. When you think about that model, you've got 350 clients, and you just said the kind of how you do the delivery. Like, what do you see as the next phase? Like, how do you evolve it again? You've already evolved.
500's me cult. I'm trying to build a cult. Right? I'm getting called that anyway, but a cult number's 500 for me. Okay. That's my target. And what's starting to happen now, Nick, which is really interesting. And the first world problem really is that some of the systems that I've got are starting to break. Are starting to break a little bit, which is why we're looking, a lot of our stuff's been manual, spreadsheets and all that. We're now using AI and software so much now. So the next level for me is 500. And the next evolution for us.
Does the current model allow for 500? Does the current model allow for 500?
Probably. I don't know. The challenge will be how long the Zoom calls go on for. That's the only challenge. That's all I can see. So the AI will handle unlimited clients. My team can handle unlimited clients. There's a lot of stuff via WhatsApp. They tend to, multiple people can do the WhatsApp thing, right? Multiple people can do onboarding for people, so they get a private onboarding. One of the things that we started doing, actually, you know the Score app, right? Obviously.
Yeah.
It's amazing. We use it in-house. We don't even use it as a lead generator. So what we do is when someone comes in, they do an assessment of where they're at, and it directs them to any training that they want on that subject. It's really good. Because again, when you've had a business for a long time, your information is overwhelming to people. Because there's so much. We think that's valuable, but actually for a lot of people, they're like, where the fuck do I start? So we use this Score app, and the next, the everything else will be able to cope. My only worry is how long the Zoom calls are. That's it. And I don't know how I'll evolve that. We'll see. Well, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But that's, again, first world problem. Maybe I'll put an extra session on. Maybe I'll put 2 shorter ones on. I don't know. And again, what I've had to do is, Nick, is I know, and this saying triggered me. You'll know what it is, which is the more valuable you are to your business, the less valuable your business is. And I heard that and it kicked me in the bollocks, because I was like, I don't really have anything that I can sell. It relies heavily on me. And that's why I've invested in the hotels and other businesses and that. You've done that very well.
Well, I've done it. I've done it. I've started doing it. And because same, you know, my Expert Empires business was my only business. It isn't now, but it's still, by the way, that business is still heavily reliant upon me. And that's why I started Elite Closing Academy with Matt, because, by the way, that is not reliant upon me, really, but it's very reliant upon Matt. And that's why I started investing in property, because that's not reliant upon me at all. And it's why I've looked at other ventures and other...
I am very aware that I have nothing that I can sell here. I've got a list of people that like me. That's legit it. That's legit it. So, but again, that's why I'm making the smart investments. That's why I'm looking into the health supplement thing again. We've got all these things that we're looking at, but my biggest problem will just be time on Zoom. People know that they're not going to meet me one-to-one. We're very clear on that. And I believe, actually, Nick, this is a strong claim that many people will refute. My clients get better results in a group than they do one-to-one.
Oh, mate, I'm with you.
They raise the standards.
Mate, I've been saying the same thing for a long time, because you still get the look, there's nothing I'm going to tell you one-on-one that you're not going to get from me in a group setting anyway. The only difference is I can cut to the core quicker in a one-on-one environment.
But you don't have to go vague with the concept.
But in terms of I go, okay, so that's the only downside, is in a group you can't cut to the core as quickly in 15 minutes with one person at a time. But if you think about it, you go, but surely the trade-off, though, is you don't get the group dynamic. And, you know, I talk about peer group a lot. Like the people you surround yourself with are who you become. Like when you hang around with winners, you become a winner. You hang around with losers, you know what happens. You know, if you hang around with people that eat shit and they're fat, and they're unhealthy, you're not going to be healthy and fit. And
you either raise your standards to fit in or you lower your standards to fit in.
Yeah, exactly.
And men are so fucking competitive.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I like about coaching men. They're competitive also. So we'll have an event next week and they will be, I'll say, can you write down your top 25 wins this quarter? Some of them will read them out and they'll start going, it'll become a dick measuring contest. It's amazing.
Yeah. Which
it's
is
brilliant.
great. Obviously, you know your audience and that's
yes.
yours.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really believe, I'm with you. I think when done well, that's the caveat. Well, with anything, when done well, I think it trumps 1-to-1.
I'll tell you a little secret.
Go on.
Here's what I do. I will teach something and I'll say, because we normally go, apply this to your business. Now I'm like, ask ChatGPT how to apply this to your business.
Yeah.
So you know, and we're talking about, listen, just get a lead magnet up or a 2-step or ethical bribe or whatever people call it. I'll say, listen, I can only teach them what I'm doing. This is what I know about lead magnets. All you have to do is say, and they're going, Paul Mort says this is Paul Mort's lead magnet. I'm a plumber. Can you create one for me?
Yeah.
Like legit, that's as simple as it can get. So that is actually now ChatGPT is doing a lot of the one-to-one element for me.
Yeah. They're taking your group content. It's taking your group content and it's making it relevant to the individual.
It's unbelievable, man. Yeah.
Oh, smart.
Scary. By the way, ChatGPT will put a lot of coaches out of work.
Yeah. Well, I think, look, with any evolution of technology, it's basically survival of the fittest.
You can't just sell information anymore.
Yeah. When you say it puts some coaches out of work, it'll be the weakest. It'll be
100%.
By the way, it ain't going to put the people out of work that are sending an email a day, that are posting content on social media, even when they don't want to, or they've got nothing to say, that have got an amazing personal brand, that have got great content that's unique. Those people are cool. They're fun.
That are human. That's the thing. So you can't, listen, we've used ChatGPT for ideas and that, and I'm like, the ChatGPT doesn't care.
Yeah.
So when I see people posting content on ChatGPT, that I can clearly see it. It's got loads of emojis in it normally.
Yeah.
I'm like, ChatGPT doesn't care. And if you're doing that, I'm of the opinion that you don't fucking care.
Yeah.
So you're human. If you want to win, you got to be human, which means you need to care, which means you need to be imperfect, which means you need to own your insecurities. And live events, what'll keep a lot of these businesses alive, by the way.
Yeah.
It's the cheat code that I've got is we run live events and they're incredible. We have a lot of, because I copied your idea of having classrooms, obviously. Modeled your idea. Right, that's what we do.
With my permission, so you can
model your idea of an HQ and these live events. Some people only come to the live events. They never come on Zoom.
Yeah.
They never watch the trainings. Some of them come to the 4 live events a year, dead in the water. Yeah. But that's what I am very good at, is connecting people, putting people together, creating energy in a room, even creating energy on Zoom. But these events that are live and in person, where we connect people, we get people that are excited about the future in a room together. Yeah. And magic happens, man.
Well, and the reason is because there is, whether you like it or not, and maybe somebody's listening to this and going, well, I don't want to run live events, it's too expensive, it's too much work. I'm like, the reason why it does cost more, but there's more perceived value there. Yeah. That's it. More perceived value. Therefore, if you're doing events live in person like you and I am, then immediately there's a bigger perceived value. And the more your perceived value is raised, the less likely you are to get put out of business by...
But especially, Nick, you can't buy a ticket from your live events. You can't.
Yeah.
So obviously all hours are in-house. I'll go, Paul, how can I come to your next event? I'm like, well, you can have it for free and join my program, or you can pay £4,000 to come for the day.
Yeah, which one? Yeah.
My program's £4,000.
Yeah. Very good. Something I really want to talk about, I'm mindful of time. I really want to cover off on this, because I think we're quite aligned and quite similar when it comes to I believe that health, fitness, well-being, physically as well as mentally, is so important to success 100%. In business. You've been alcohol-free now for how long?
I think next week, 1,500 days.
Which is how long?
3 years, 4 months or something.
Yeah. So over 3 years. This is not a lecture about alcohol and drinking, but talk about the health, the well-being, the physical health and well-being part, and how important that is to business for you.
First up, I'll tell you that you inspired me to do the year booze free, because you did the year before, right? So that's the first piece.
Well, and by the way, I'm going to throw it back at you. So thank you. So I did it in 2020, right? And you went, amazing, I'm going to do the same.
Yeah.
Then throughout, to begin with, I didn't really drink anything. And then through 2021, a little bit, and 2022, a bit more, crept back in, right? So end of last year, 2024, I went, bang, I'm going to do another year. So I'm currently nearly 3 months as we're recording this,
Come on.
and feeling amazing. And the reason was I just went, I feel like I'd slipped back a bit, not completely, but back into old habits.
Yeah,
And I was
cool.
like, I want to get myself back on my A game, and I knew that was holding me back.
So that's the first piece. But the second piece, remember me.
And by the way, so what I wanted to say, Paul, sorry to interrupt, was, and that was inspired by you. So
Oh shit! Oh, thank you, man.
it came back the other way. It was like, this guy's firing all cylinders. He's like an energizer bunny. He never stops. And I'm like, the thing that he's doing, I know works. I'm just going to do that.
Yeah, and that mad. I had a messed up relationship with alcohol anyway, because if you know anything about my story, 2014, rock bottom, ready to kill myself, drinking a lot, sniffing a lot of coke.
Yeah.
I obviously solved a bit of that, but I was still, and again, when I started doing it, everyone was like, why are you doing that? You only drink like the end of every quarter, because I'm obsessed with 90-day sprints. Like I've been obsessed with that for a long time. 90 days, let's go. So I was like, well, I just want to see if I can. So I was drinking at the end of every quarter, maybe twice, so 6 times a year, maybe, right? Twice at Christmas. But what I realized is that I like operating at 100%, 90 to 100%. And I think people forget what that feels like. So what I'd realized, I'd be 90% for 8 weeks of the 12, because I'd be operating at 50% for the week after. As I got older, it started getting 70%, 60%, 50%. I'd be operating 50% for the week after, 60% for the week. So I was losing really, and again, not in bed, but just not right for 3 weeks out of the 12. And I'm like, is that payoff worth it? It wasn't worth it for me.
Well, you think about it, it's a quarter of the quarter, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. You can't treat your body like a bin and expect to operate like you can't treat it like a bin and expect it to operate like a Ferrari. You can't put diesel in a petrol engine and then wonder why it's not working. Like, and it's an obvious saying, but I think that it made my life actually more, because the first thing people ask me, life's gonna be boring. I'm like, and all I say, does my life look boring to you?
Yeah.
Am I boring? I'm probably the opposite. I'm probably annoying. I'm as annoying sober as people are when they're drunk. Right? Legit.
Time with you, I can affirm that is definitely true.
It's not stop, but my life isn't boring. And actually, when I think about drinking now, I'm like, that would be a downgrade for me in terms of excitement.
Yeah.
I haven't got room in my life to get drunk. And by the way, you know as well as me, I don't miss out. I have more fun. I go to more places. I go to boxing. I'm at the UFC this weekend. I go to footy all of the time. Last night I was out and everyone was fucking drinking. And it doesn't bother me, because I'm like, well, I'm still having a great time. It's not the end of the world.
The thing is, for me,
if I feel like shit, how can I operate? I can't if I operate at the highest level, which in business, you need to be able to.
Yeah. But for me, interestingly, it's day to day isn't where I get the value. It's the day after I would have normally drunk, or the few days after. So like, I went to Bruges for the Villa Champions League away game. And obviously everyone there's drinking. I'm not. I was there with my kids. That was the other great thing. I could take my kids, and it felt like
that makes it easy.
Everything I did, they did. It was all cool.
Yeah, so that makes it easier, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes it easier.
The last thing I'd want is for my kids to see me drunk, by the way.
Yeah, well, it makes it easier, but also on the flip side, I go, it makes it easier for me to take them and easier for me to not drink. But like, it means that I'm more likely to take them to that stuff because I'm not drinking.
Yeah.
But then, so well, mate, like I was there for 2 days, 2 nights. I got back late on it was the Tuesday night after the game, or the Wednesday night, I forget. And then bang, next morning I'm up, I'm at it. Yeah. And like, if I've been in Bruges for 2 days on the piss, I am not up and at it the next day. Like, it's going to be at least 24 hours to recover, maybe more in reality, probably more. And that's where I see the biggest benefit. I see the biggest benefit on a Saturday morning, a Sunday morning, a Monday morning.
Every day does count in business.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Every day counts. And again, as my business has grown, I've really got higher levels of accountability. Like, my sales team are commission based.
Yeah.
Guess who's generating a lot of the leads for them? Me.
Yeah.
I'm like, if I don't get hands raised here, if I don't get eyes, if I don't get emails opened, right? These guys' kids aren't going to eat anything. So it's not that bad, right? But I'm like, now I owe it to more people. And again, Nick, I haven't got room for it. And my kids have seen, so I've been all over with Max. We go everywhere. He's seen men drunk making absolute dicks of themselves so many times that I'm not even sure he'll drink when he's older.
No, well, that's actually another benefit. Same thing with Zach. So my boy's a year older than Max. He's 50. And again, though, funnily enough, putting them in those environments, I think is a good thing because it shows that like they're going, look at that person being a dick, making a fool.
Like, especially because Max is a fighter, he loves boxing, loves jiu-jitsu, loves rugby. He's scarily hard. He'll fill me in soon. That's why I keep training jiu-jitsu, because he fills me in.
I love that you're saying soon, not yet.
Yeah, soon. Not yet. Not yet. He's not ready. He's not ready. My ground game is better than his, right? But he sees people fighting. He's like, Dad, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, because we go to a lot of fighting. Bare knuckle, he loves bare knuckle the most. We go boxing, we go UFC. And when people have had a drink, just like a comedy, when people have had a drink, they think they're a comedian.
Yeah.
When people are at fights, they think that when people are at fights, they've had a drink, they think they can fight. It's wild.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's so embarrassing, man. There's literally 100 punches get thrown and none of them land. You just end up with blokes with like the shirts over the head and that. It's wild. But yeah, but the drinking thing has been a game changer for me. Ultimately, Nick, we forget about this part. The self-belief, the confidence, and the certainty that I got from being able to do that for a year.
Yeah.
Crossed over in everything else.
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah.
But I actually didn't really I set the goal of not drinking for a year. But then it's not even a goal of mine now because the other goals are so important and so difficult and a stretch and so unrealistic, if you like, that the cost of entry to getting them is not drinking.
Yeah.
If I drink, I wouldn't be able to hit them. I'm far away from them anyway. Yeah. If I drink, I'll be even further away.
Yeah, and I think similar to you, I've set some pretty big, outrageous, you might have thought at the start.
Outrageous, great word, yeah.
Impossible goals, And when I looked at them, I went, like, what's the one thing that's going to almost guarantee that all these are achieved? And I knew that was it. But even then, I've made some pretty big decisions recently in my business. But all I've had to do to make those decisions is look at my goals and go, right, if I want to achieve these things that are seemingly impossible, what's going to move me closer or what's going to move me further away? So, I know goal setting is not, it's not a new idea, but
sometimes it's not about the things you do. It's actually sometimes, I say to people all the time, you didn't achieve the goal because of what you didn't do. It's because of what you did instead.
Yeah.
You did something else instead. So yeah, you didn't go to the gym, but you did something else instead. That's the problem. Yeah. So my big one this year is, okay, what here doesn't belong in my future? Because I can't take everything with me into this year. Yeah. Some things have to go. Some people have to go because I can't drag them along with me. There's no space for them on the bus. So I've had to let a lot of things go, and sadly, stand-up was one of them.
Yeah. Well, and look, you've got business goals, you've got personal goals. You love to travel all over the world, go to sporting events. You've got a family. You want to spend time.
I love fighting. It's
something's got to give somewhere. And obviously that was.
And I'll revisit it, mate. I've got no doubt that in 4 or 5 years' time, I'll likely be done with this.
Yeah.
Which means that I'll be on the speaking circuit, probably full time. But that's when the comedy will come back, because I can give it a real run. I feel like comedy's not one of them things if you dabble at it.
Yeah.
So I'm not the dabbler anymore. I'm
you're all in, all out. Yeah, it's smart.
And that's why I'm actually not doing that much public speaking, Nick. I'm like, do you know what? It's kind of makes sense, but I'm like, it's not my profession.
Yeah.
It's a little side hustle that gets me in front of a new room of people. That's all.
Yeah. So we've got 5 minutes. I want to finish on the thing that I think you've done brilliantly, and I want everyone to hear this. Let's talk like personal brand, building your credibility or authority. There's 2 things that I see that you've done brilliantly, and there's loads of others, by the way, but 2 things in particular that you've done brilliantly. One, and I remember when you started it, you did your podcast. Paul Mort talks shit. If you're easily offended and you're listening to this, do not subscribe to that podcast. Are you still doing that podcast?
No.
What's the reason? I want to get in under it. Like, is it just that had to give because of other things that were more important?
ROI.
Yeah.
For the time, the effort, the money put in wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
So, and I'm in demand to go on other people's podcasts. I did 9 last week because of the book launch, right? Yeah. So I did 9 last week. So actually, really, the podcast often isn't where the value is when it comes to business. The reels are.
Yeah.
But I say to people now, you want me to come in your podcast? Cool, come to my office and I'll get all the video and the thing in that. But the ROI just wasn't worth it me, because for me, I like the in-person podcasts, and you'll enjoy that better as well. But getting people to sell shields.
Yeah, makes sense.
And me traveling, that's 2 days out of my business.
Yeah.
So the ROI just wasn't worth it for me. The only ones that I'm doing now are the case studies. And I use them. I don't just, because the problem is with the podcast as well, Nick, what I've realized, you don't know who's listening to it.
Yeah.
You don't know who's listening. You know how many listeners you, but you don't know who it is. So now what I do is I've reversed that and I do case studies. And if people want it, they've got to ask for it. They've also got to opt in to get it. And then a month later, I drop it in the normal podcast. So now I've got data. Now I know, right, if this is a podcast that I put together from me with a male business owner, I know that when they raise their hand, I don't have to ask the question. They've qualified themselves already. So it's anyway, the reason I started that podcast was just sheer profile, mate. My friends were doing well on podcasts.
And by the way, I think even though you say ROI wasn't worth it, you stopped doing it.
Not now. At the start, it was.
Yeah, I still think the value was huge. Like building profile. I mean, you had Tyson Fury on, you know.
Tyson Fury, Ant Middleton, James Haskell, Chris Ramsey, all y'all are doing. Vicky Patterson. Vicky's a great connect.
Yeah, so you know, you got a lot of value out of that, and I think that was brilliant and that was smart. The second thing that I think you've done phenomenally well is the books. Yeah. So how many books you written now?
I have written 3 books.
Books.
If I count the 2-hour one that I did on the off the cuff, that's 4.
Yeah, so 4, and I think you did a lot of audio with those as well. Yeah. The most recent one, Upgrade, is available
hardback with a sleeve and everything in all major bookstores, which was that's an 8-year goal for me. You know, a lot of people don't realize that.
So how did because you know, writing a book and being public, being in all bookstores and having a bestseller, like for me, look, writing a book's one thing, loads of people do that. Having it be a proper bestseller in bookstores is another.
Second biggest publisher in the world. It's wild.
Yeah, how did that happen? How did you get it?
So I self-published one in 2019. That changed my life, by the way.
Yeah.
Self-publishing a book where all I did was the Brunson model, which was pay for the book's free, you just pay for shipping and printing, right? So I did that. That grew my list. I did a second one, which was audio only about how to end self-sabotage. That was literally, you can get it for free. It's an MP3 file. Then I was opening up for James Smith in Newcastle for a live show, and I met his agent. And obviously, they're fans of me because of what we did together. And his agent said to me off the cuff, he said, Paul, and James was on tour with his first ever book. That was the one where he was on Good Morning Britain with Piers Morgan. His profile went. It was called Not a Diet Book, right? And his agent said to me, Paul, when you get sick of fucking around with self-published books, let me know. And it was an off-the-cuff comment. And I was like, the next day I was like, I messaged him, I said, man, what are you saying? And then the same year, he was like, Paul, I've got contacts. And Luke, my agent, is actually a promoter. He's 50 Cent's promoter. He's Dizzy Rascal's promoter. He's bringing 50 Cent to Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. How cool is that?
Yeah, very.
He's a big baller, right? So Luke's a good mate of mine now. And I said, listen, what you're saying? He said, well, I've got some contacts. I love what you've got to say. And obviously, you've helped James out. So it was in lockdown. We had a meeting with HarperCollins, with who's James with. HarperCollins are massive. They published Game of Thrones and that. It's wild. It's wild. So they were like, listen, Paul, it's lockdown. The price of paper has gone through the roof. You're a bit of a risk. And I didn't get that, right? So we did the audiobook. We did the audiobook in like 6 weeks. Wrote it, did it, got it out in 6 weeks. And they did very well. At one point, it was number 3 in the charts overall. The only 2 ahead were Matthew McConaughey and Barack Obama. And obviously, my networking from the past with all the people that I know, that pushed it. This book even more. So anyway, did that book deal. That went very well. They love me. I went to the other parties. I pushed the book hard for them. Like I did empty my tank in terms of my part. Because it's not just up to them to promote it. It's up to me. So anyway.
Well, I understand that they generally look for, like how you get a decent sized book deal is they look for how many copies you're going to sell. And then we'll do our bit, but like if you can pull a lot of weight, then we're happy to publish it.
That is why in my space, I tell people don't bother. Yeah. Because the personal development space, unless you're a fucking doctor, I'm not saying anything new, Nick. I'm telling stories that people haven't heard in that book. I'm wrapping the information that I've learned from other people into my personal stories so it's relatable. Yeah. So this book here, I set the goal. I was like, listen, the big goal was to get in W.H. Smith at Newcastle Airport, right? So my kids could see it. And so all my mates would see it. And lads that would never pick up a book would pick it up. So anyway, getting the book deal, I went back to them and I said to Luke, I said, listen, do you reckon I'll get a hardback? He was like, probably not. And when I look at it, I get it. You've either got to be a doctor or have a giant following. This is why people who've been on Geordie Shore and lost weight get book deals.
Yeah.
Guaranteed sales. When you think about it as a publisher, they've got to pay me, pay an editor, pay proofreaders, and pay to get this. This is not cheap.
Yeah.
And then sell it for pennies on the pound, right? So I realize I'm a massive risk. So this time I was like, Luke, can you get me one? He's like, let's go to them with a book that's been completed, a book that's been edited, and I was okay with not getting paid any money.
Yeah.
And that's the benefit of being where I'm at. I'm like, I don't need money. They ended up paying me quite a bit of money and giving me a hardback deal. I mean, I was signing fucking books last week at Waterstones, man. There was a queue outside. I was like, Jesus. So the book deal came about through, in my opinion, connections.
Yeah.
The more you connect, the more you collect, right? But connections, like, mate, one of the things that put it over the line was the amount of testimonials that I got from celebrities that I know. So I've got Russell Kane, Chris Ramsey, James Smith on the front. Ollie Otterton gave me one, Jay Morton, Paul Lima. So all the people that I've networked with over the years who I've never asked for anything from. I said, listen, lads, what you got for me? I had Vicky Patterson promoting it. And that's all these people that I'd met. I basically called in all the favors of all the relationships that I've been watering for the years. I cut the flowers off. I said, listen, I need your help here. And that's what got it done.
Yeah.
But for most people, I tell most people, listen, the chances of you getting a book deal in the personal development space, unless you've got hundreds of thousands or even millions of followers, no chance.
Well, and by the way, shameless plug, go get a copy of Upgrade. You can buy it on Amazon, you can buy it in bookstores, great book. Check it out. But let's end with how we started, which is basically that you can have a head start, but the advantage really is the longer you've been in the game, the more connections you've made, the more likely it is you're going to be able to make things like this happen.
Stop stopping is a huge message for me.
Yeah.
Huge message. There's this concept that's called fail fast, like fail fast.
Yeah.
The guy, I read something the other day, I can't remember who said it, but it was like, fail 100 times as fast as you can.
Yeah.
So that means get 100 podcasts done as fast as you can. Get on a stage 100 times as fast as you can. Write 100 emails, make 100 posts as fast as you can.
Yeah, and that in itself is what gets you the head start. It's that simple. Yeah. You know, you've been in the game a long time. You've made a lot of connections. I've been in the game a hell of a long time. Made a lot of connections. So you know, getting big speakers on stage, getting Tyson Fury on your podcast, getting a book deal. All of these things happen because you've been in the game a longer time. In other words, you got started and then didn't stop. And kept going.
That's it. And that's such a simple message, but the stopping part is huge because what you see is people will go all in on social media for 2 weeks and then take a week off. You can't do that. You've forgotten about after 2 days. You've forgotten about because the world moves so fast. So you've got to be relentless and be literally. There's a guy called Scott Olford. He calls it omnipresence. You've got to have omnipresence. You've got to be on all of those platforms. Not all of them. You know, me and LinkedIn don't get on very well. LinkedIn hates me, right? The people on LinkedIn
Can't imagine why.
No, they can't. Well, someone said it was the other week. I posted a video that got me in trouble. Someone said you can't post that on LinkedIn, and I said, well, I just did. What are you going to do about it?
Paul Mort, thanks for being here on the Empire Builders.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and thanks everyone for listening in. Like, subscribe, all the kind of normal stuff. And check Paul out. Go and get his book. It's called Upgrade. Where can they check you out on socials? What's the best place?
Instagram is where I have the most fun.
Instagram at I am Paul Mort, right?
Paul Mort Official with a blue tick now.
Well, not I am Paul Mort.
No, Paul Mort Official now.
All right. I think I'm just giving your email address out instead.
You did. That's fine.
That's funny. Right. Check out Paul Mort Official with a blue tick on Instagram. See you on the other side.
Come on.
Thank you so much for listening to Empire Builders. Please subscribe, leave us a review on Apple, on Spotify, on other platforms, and share the love, tell your friends. Remember, till next time, the more you connect, the more you collect.